Field placement. I've been through 2 of them and I've got some advice for you. So my guess is if you clicked on this video, you're either interested in learning about social work, you are a social work student, maybe you're coming up on your field placement, and they can be nerve-wracking, especially because I know in my experience through undergrad, field was just hyped up as this big thing. You take this class, you take this class, and then you get to do field. And so it was this huge big thing and it was like a big question mark. I didn't know how to do it well. I didn't know what the experience was going to be like. So I've been through 2 of them now. I've been through my BSW field placement and my MSW field placement, and I've got advice for you. Hi, my name is Anna. I'm a current MSW student. I have about 1 more month until I graduate, until I'm just done. I'm an actual MSW, which feels crazy. And on this channel, I have informative videos just like this one that can be helpful to you along your own social work journey. And then also I just document my life as I'm going through real time, real actions, all of that. So obviously subscribe if you wanna, but I won't waste your time too much about that because we're talking about field. So a general overview of field placement. If you're in undergrad, you're getting your Bachelor of Social Work, then you will get 400 field hours. And then if you're getting your MSW, you will either get 900 hours total, or if you're doing advanced standing MSW, meaning you got your Bachelor's of Social Work and now you're moving on straight to your Master's, then you'll need 500 hours of field placement. So together, the undergrad 400, advanced standing 500, gets to that 900 that the general programs for MSWs have, which is a lot of hours. You definitely get a lot of experience, which I do find to be really helpful because then as you graduate, whenever you're entering the actual field of social work, you have some experience under your belt, but it's guided experience where you have the guidance of people who are doing it to help you out. And you can make mistakes and learn from them while being an intern instead of while being a employee. With field placement, you can be placed anywhere that has a social worker. So each school does it a little bit different, school to school, in the placement process. I know some schools have like application and interviews for placements, whereas other ones have you just get placed and then that's your place. And some have it where you can request certain areas of the field or certain aspects that you would like to get from field, and then they kind of take that into account as they place you. So look into how your school does it. Personally, for me, both of mine we kind of had a conversation about this is what I think I would like from field, and they said okay, and then they found my field placement and said here is where you're placed. And so there wasn't a super active interview process or anything like that. It was here's your placement, and for both of mine it ended up working out. So mine, if you're curious, when I was in undergrad, I was at elementary schools, school social work intern, which was a lot of case management mixed with some counseling, not super clinical at all, but some kind of basic level counseling to help students fit best into the school as they need to, into their school experience. Whereas now I'm at a youth detention center and it's a lot more clinical, one-on-one, like mental health counseling, which is what I requested. I just didn't know it was going to be in a detention center, but I have really enjoyed it. That being said, figure out what you would like from field if you know. If you don't know, that's okay, because field is an awesome place to figure out what you like and what you don't like. If you are placed somewhere for your internship and you just know that it's not your thing, okay, sounds good. Get the skills that you need to from it, get the experience that you can, but then also you know that you're not going to apply for a job in that same exact area. You know, it's a learning experience, but think about the kinds of things that you would like. Maybe you want to be macro focused, and so let your field specialist know that so that they can try to get you a placement that can help you there. Or maybe you are really all about that one-on-one interaction with clients. Let them know that. Maybe you are interested in policy. Maybe you have a special place in your heart for people who are immigrating. Something like that. If there are aspects of field that you would just really like, let your field specialist know that. Now, I know I've mentioned a few people, so just in their general overview here, placement specialists, field specialists are usually the people that are placing you into your internship. That's their job, is to find social work students their social work internships. And so you'll be in contact with them leading up to field and when you get your placement. You'll also have a field advisor. And so your field advisor is someone from the school. They're with your school that you're a student at, and they are your contact point for anything regarding field while you're in field. So if you need help or if you need support through your internship, then they can advocate for you, or you can talk with them and kind of figure it out, but they're your school contact. The next person you'll have is your field instructor or your supervisor. And this person is not with your school, but they're with the agency that you are placed at. And so your field instructor, also known as your supervisor, is the person who will be teaching you to do what you're doing. They'll be giving you supervision, they'll be the person to answer your questions, but they are placed at the agency. And they'll be in contact with your field advisor to the extent that you need them to be. And your field instructor or your supervisor is someone that is required to have a social work degree, because that's what you're learning to become, so you learn from them. You may also have a task supervisor. What this would be is if you have an MSW or somebody who's at the agency, but maybe they're not with you every single day all the way along the way. There's someone else that's teaching you how to do the tasks, that's kind of overviewing you throughout the day, but then you still have that supervisor relationship for your big questions questions and to get guidance and all of that. But task supervisor could be anyone, doesn't have to be a social worker, but they'd be who's looking at you day to day, kind of guiding you in the little tasks of it. Not everybody has that. For me, both times my supervisor has been the one that I've spent the most time with during the day as well, but sometimes it's different just depending on the setup of your agency. Now getting into the actual tips. Tip number 1, you do not need to know everything going into field. This is the first time that you will be trying to apply what you've learned in all of your classes leading up to this point, and so you will not be an expert, which can be hard to wrap your mind around because you want to show up and you want to do your best and you want to be really good at what you do. But the fact of the matter is, if this is your first time doing it, that's going to be hard. There's going to be a learning curve. It's going to take a second to get used to all of it, and that's okay because you're an intern. You're in field. You're not working yet, and so this is your time to learn. And so really it is a special time because you get to dedicate that time to learning. But imposter syndrome can run deep. Imposter syndrome is when you feel like everyone else around you knows more than you, deserves to be where they are, and you just don't deserve that. You think, oh, I don't know anything. I don't know what we're talking about. I'm not doing my job well. I don't deserve to be here. That's imposter syndrome. And it can be weird as an intern because you're surrounded by people who are in the field, are doing their careers, have many years of experience, and you're just popping up out of nowhere saying, hey, I'd like to do this too. It can be kind of a weird feeling. So just remind yourself that you do not need to know everything and you're not expected to know everything because your agency will have taken on an intern knowing that you're an intern, knowing that you are a student. So because you're starting not knowing much, work to take note of the skills that you see social workers around you using. Make connections between theories and perspectives that you've learned and see if you can apply them to the actual work that you're doing. Try to make that jump from education into application and just kind of challenge yourself to think like a social worker based on what you've learned. Now this kind of goes along with it, but the second thing to remember is that you are there to learn. Shadow as many social workers as you can. Everyone has their unique style, their unique perspective, are better and worse at some skills versus others, and so just see as many social workers in action as you can at your agency, because then you can be taking note of, ooh, I really like how she did this, I really like how he did that. Or you can even take note of, I didn't really like how they handled that situation. Maybe it wasn't wrong, but it just wouldn't be your personal style. By shadowing just so many different people, as many as you can really start to form your own personal opinion about how you would like to do social work. Another part of learning is to note the difference between your social work perspective and people who may be working around you without a social work background. Because obviously fields of study are different, and so it can be kind of interesting to see that in action. For example, for me, I've worked closely with people who have clinical mental health counseling background. A lot of what we do is the same, but the perspective through which we see the work can be really different. Being that you are there to learn, if you don't know something or if you don't understand something, ask. Even if you've asked it before, make sure that it's clear to you. Because remember, you are there to learn. They took you on because they know that you are there to learn. And so be active in your learning. If there's something that you don't get, you don't need to just try to connect the dots in your head because sometimes you might not connect them right? Ask the people who know. Because ultimately with field, you are getting that experience, you're upping your resume, all of that, but you are there to learn, and so you want to learn while you're there. Now this tip may seem pretty similar, but you'll see the difference. Remember while you're in field that you are there to learn how to be a social worker. So we just talked about how you're there to learn, that kind of mindset. And now you're there to learn how to be a social worker. And this I want to talk about because sometimes that means setting some boundaries or having conversations about expectations, clear conversations about expectations. In the very beginning, make sure it's clear to your agency what their expectations of you are so that you can make sure that they match what your expectations of field is. Within reason, obviously. But as an intern, you're not there to do grunt work. You're not there to get coffee, to make copies, all of those typical intern duties. You're there to learn how to do social work skills. It's field placement. It's not just some regular internship where you're just an extra little body that people can throw tasks on. You're learning how to be a social worker, and so if you find yourself in the position where you're not able to get that experience, maybe they're not giving you a caseload, which obviously you'll be supervised with everything that you do, but if you're in the position where you're not able to get those social work skills, you find yourself doing more grunt work that nobody else wants to do, that's when you would have that conversation with your field supervisor first, the person who's there at the agency, and say, hey, this is my expectation, these are the tasks that I would like to be doing because these are the skills that I would like to learn. And then if needed, you can talk to your field advisor who is at your university and say, something's just not clicking here. Because you want your field experience to teach you how to be a social worker. You don't want your field experience to teach you how to become an expert copy maker. And that can be hard. If those expectations don't align and you find yourself having to self-advocate, that can be hard, especially if it's one of the first times that you've had to self-advocate like that. But you would so much rather have the semi-difficult conversation of self-advocacy than to get to the end of your field placement and be like, I don't feel prepared, I didn't learn anything. Along with that boundary setting, remember that this is your internship and this is not your job. We'll talk about how to be a good intern, some of which is just kind of common sense, right? Be respectful, be ready to work, don't grumble grumble at the actual tasks you're given if, they're within reason, like we mentioned. But this is your internship, not your job. So you're a student. School is your number one, and you are getting experience along with that schooling to learn how to be a social worker. But if you find yourself overwhelmed to the point that your schoolwork is hurting or your mental health is down the drain because of the overwhelming load of work that you've been given at your field placement, that's another point where you need to self-advocate, because you are an intern there, you are not an employee, right? Other people are getting paid to do the work, and if they could not function without you, then that's kind of showing that they might be putting too much on you. I don't say this to scare you, but just to be aware that sometimes boundaries might need to be set because those expectations might be different of your agency versus you, or your agency versus your school. And I don't want you to get stuck in a position where you're having an awful time at field and you're not sure if that's happened to other people. It does. It for sure does. And so, like I said, self-advocacy is very important. And if you need to ask your field advisor to help you have a conversation with your supervisor, if you find that you're not able to be practicing social work skills, or you feel like your workload is just way too much for an intern as you're just beginning to learn, then you can do that, because those conversations are important. And you won't be the first person who's had to do it, and you won't be the last person who's going to have to do it. Another little tip, a little thing to remember that I have for you is to really value and protect your relationship with your supervisor to the best of your ability. Obviously, sometimes supervisors and supervisees might just not click, and that's why I say to the best of your ability, because really your supervisor is going to be your number one person there. And if you're able to protect and value that relationship, kind of figure out what their work style is, what their relationship with you style is, so that you can maintain to the best of your ability that relationship where you can ask questions, even if you feel like they might be a dumb question, you feel comfortable doing so, to where they can be a reference and a resource for you even after field ends. Your supervisor really can be the shining star of your field experience, and so to the best of your ability, really protect and value that relationship, because they've been doing it. They're a social worker, so make sure to respect them, have a good attitude, right? Write down questions that you have throughout the week so that you can bring them up in supervision. Usually supervision will look like an hour set aside from the week, and it can kind of be structured differently place to place, but typically about an hour set aside in the week where it really just is you getting to be supervised, you getting to ask questions, you getting to get advice, consult about maybe like cases that you're struggling with. And so make the most use of that time with your supervisor that they're dedicating to you. If you have questions, if you have advice that you need, just write it down throughout the week, so once you get to that hour, you guys can discuss it and you can make the most use of that time and of that relationship. Be open to criticism from your supervisor, because that's also their job. If they see you doing something, or maybe just a skill that's not super strong or something like that, it is their job to, in a nice way, let you know so that you can get better at it, right? Because remember how we talked about this is your first time doing it, you don't know everything, and so that means that there's going to be areas that you need to get better on. And so if they criticize you, it's not personal, or it shouldn't be personal. And I know honestly for me that was something hard, because I understood that I was in a position where I needed to learn, I needed to get better, but sometimes just explicitly being told where I wasn't that good can kind of hurt a little bit. But because I was sensitive about it, I had to remember that this isn't a blow to my ego. My supervisor correcting me isn't them not liking me, it's them wanting me to be better, wanting me to be the best social worker that I can. So be open to criticism. Now, like I mentioned, sometimes the supervisor relationship might not be a great fit, but regardless of how much personally you get along with your supervisor, professionally, remember that they have experience, they've been doing it for however many years that they're doing it, and they're doing it in real time. So maybe they have a style that you just don't really agree with, you don't think is yours. If it's working for them and it's ethical, respect that, right? Because you don't know more than your supervisor, you're an intern at this point. My last little piece of advice to you, I think might be the most important one, but that is to be in contact with your cohort, be in community with your cohort. Your cohort are the people that are doing it at the same time as you, the other students from your school that are doing it at the same time as you. It can be hard. Field can definitely be hard, both emotionally, if this is your first time being subjected to clients' trauma, to super broken systems, really being in the inner workings of those. Emotionally, that can be draining on you. Self-care is a whole different video. I have other videos about it, but definitely needed. Academically, it can be hard. Just thinking about social work all the time, applying those perspectives, applying those theories, doing reflection papers or process recordings or whatever your school is having you do. Academically, field can be challenging. And it can be challenging just in a personal growth type of way. Like I said, I'm not super good at taking criticism. I do think I've gotten better at it, but because you're learning and growing so much in field, sometimes that can be uncomfortable just because you're having to continually better yourself and pick out where you need to get better, and you're not just really coasting along. And so personally, it can be uncomfortable as well. But you're not the only one doing it. Not only nationwide nationwide are there a bunch of social work students doing it at the same time as you, but you have a cohort in your school, and lots of times you'll have a field seminar where you're paired with a group of students who are doing field at the same time as you, and you can debrief and talk about topics and all of that. But regardless, just get the numbers of people who are doing it with you, so that if you need someone to hold space for your struggles because you know that they understand it as well, you can do that. You're not alone. You're not going to be alone. You shouldn't be alone, but really value and make use of those relationships that you can have with your cohort who is literally doing it in real time, the same as you. If you have any questions or want more tips, I can always make a part 2 or anything, or any other social work topics that you would like me to cover, obviously let me know. I hope this video was helpful to you, and I hope it didn't scare you at all. Like, field has been incredible. Absolutely the best parts of both of my social work degree experiences. And that doesn't mean they're always easy, but they have been the best part and have definitely grown my confidence as I am about to enter the real world workforce and being able to be a social worker. So I wish you the best. Let me know if I can support you at all along your journey. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Honestly, the fact that you took the time to watch this video, I think shows that you have the mindset that you're going to be a great intern in your field placement. Subscribe before you go, and I'll see you next time.